My cousins live in North Dakota, and I spent the winter break there freshman year in college. We were at their friend's house one night, drinking in her basement with some other girls, and it was really late, like 3 a.m. I was falling asleep, so I decided to walk home. They live in a desolate area with lots of snow, and it gets really cold, especially at night. But the houses weren't too far apart, and when the moon is out, it's pretty light out. The path we always take is straight behind the house, through some wooded areas, then more open land, and as I was shuffling home through the snow with my head down, I look up and to the left, my 10 o'clock, and probably like 75 yards away, is another figure walking in the opposite direction. I saw him a split second before he saw me, and when he did, he kind of jerked his arms and shoulders up a little, obviously startled from the sight of me as I was with him. I laughed out loud for some reason, just from the shock or something, and I gave him a little wave like, "Oh, you startled me, haha, sorry," kind of thing. He just stood there and stared at me. I thought he was going to say something for a second, and so I was stopped too, just looking at him. I then noticed he had a full-face ski mask on, and I could tell it was a dude because he was really tall, but he still didn't say anything. So, for what felt like forever, it's just me and some stranger in a ski mask looking at each other in the desolate woods, in the middle of winter, at 3 a.m. A huge chill went up my spine, and a voice in my head said, "You need to get the fuck out of here right now." I then turned around and started walking as fast as I could home. I've never been so scared in my life. I was a little drunk, stoned, and very paranoid. I imagined me walking home from the opposite perspective, and the man is running up from behind with an axe, so I literally just screamed and started sprinting as fast as I could all the way home, thinking that this guy could easily follow my tracks in the snow and that I'm gonna get murdered. Luckily I didn't, but I don't think I'll be visiting them again anytime soon. A trail I like backpacking in an isolated area of Pennsylvania was the setting for this odd encounter. The trail has a short section that goes over someone's cabin property and continues on the other side of his yard. It's marked with an orange blaze so you can see where to go. Usually it's an empty cabin. I always do some peering inside since it's in a pretty secluded spot, probably 4 or 5 miles from any major road. One time I was hiking through, and there's a large dude grilling outside with about 15 Bud Light cans on the ground around him. I distinctly remember him saying, "Keep it moving, no food here," which I thought was funny since I didn't say anything about needing food. Fast forward the following year, and I decide to take my sister, my wife, and her best friend on a trip that takes us through this very spot. As we're walking up on it, I see the dude is there again, which is very odd, since I've hiked this trail 100 times, and this is only twice I've seen him. He's grilling again, beer cans everywhere. I see him start to give the keep it moving signal until he sees who I'm with. Now, the girls I'm traveling with are attractive, so I'm nervous all of a sudden. He then asks us to stay for dinner, says he has plenty of extra food. I tell him no, we're good, just trying to enjoy the trail away from the comforts of home. He then gets weirdly pushy about us staying, and I firmly say, "No, thanks, we're just passing through." I hear the dude mumble to himself as we continue to pass his house. This is where things get weird. There's a prominent camping spot not far from this section of the trail, and it's pretty late. In my head, I want to keep going because I don't want to camp near this asshole. The consensus is everyone is pretty tired though, so we set up camp. I'm pretty nervous the whole time, thinking this drunk dude knows there are 3 women camping in tents near his cabin. I never get nervous around folk I see on the trail, because everyone is usually very nice and wonderful to talk to. This guy just felt off to me though. Fast forward to the middle of the night, and sure enough I hear someone on the trail outside the tent. I'm just praying it's a bear at this point. But I hear the dude mumbling to himself, and I panic. I hear him now in the camp. He's going through our shit, and is pissed drunk. Fuck. Okay, think. I realize I have a blowhorn on my pack I use on the trail to scare animals off should I encounter any. So I unzip the tent slowly and roll out. Dude is fumbling around, and it's scary as hell, because it's the middle of the darkness in the middle of nowhere. I start to run towards him and blow my air horn repeatedly, and it's loud as shit. Everyone in their tent starts screaming. The dude nearly shits his pants and starts bumbling the fuck out of there. Everyone is so shaken up at this point, we packed up and night hiked the fuck out of there. Worst experience I've ever had. I was on my wife's family ranch, which is about 1,000 acres. I was scouting deer as it was deer season. I had my rifle slung on my back as I was walking through the woods. As I walk out of the woods onto one of our 2 dirt roads into the property, I saw two strangers sitting on the back bed of their white pickup truck. They had rifles in their hands. I approached them with a friendly wave. As I approached them, I kept my rifle slung on my back so to not threaten them. I then asked them how they're doing and what they're hunting. They said they were doing fine and looking for deer. I then noticed 6 or 7 beer cans on the ground. They asked me the same thing, and I told them that I was good and scouting deer as well. Here comes the hard part. I asked them how they got onto the property. They began to mumble and asked me the same question. I politely told them that my wife's family owns the property. I then told them that they should leave. I told them to have a great day and started walking backwards. After about 20 yards, I turn around and start walking very briskly. I then heard one shot in my direction. I hit the ground behind a bush, and another shot rings out. I hear that bullet whiz. I immediately position myself to fire on them. I see one guy packing up his gun into the back bed of the truck. I take aim at his right leg and fire. I get up and start running into the woods. I hear screaming. After about 20 minutes, I get back to my Tahoe and call the game warden and local sheriff. They come out after about 30 more minutes, and these poachers are gone. I told them all the details and descriptions that I had, and said I think I shot one in the leg. Next day, I get a call from the sheriff saying they had a guy in the local ER with a gunshot wound to the leg. He sent me a pic via text. It was the guy I shot. He survived and got 4 years in prison because this was his first felony. They never found the other guy. My boyfriend, our dog, and I went camping up this Forest Service road in BC, Canada that I've gone to well over 20 times. Midweek, early in the season for most people. We have the place to ourselves. Around dusk, 2 guys bomb up the road on quads. Had to go past my car to get to the river. We don't think anything of it. About an hour later, one guy left. Other guy is still at the river. So, after a bit, I go ask if everything is all good with his quad, thinking maybe he ran out of gas and his buddy went to go get more. Dude was very surprised by the fact that there were people there. Had no idea that they went right past my car and our campsite. Apparently his quad was fine, so I head back to our site. We're peacefully making dinner, and then start hearing yelling over the sounds of the river. Both of us thought it was really odd, but hey, people are weird. He's yelling things like, "Fuck you, you ruined my life," and unintelligible angriness. About an hour of this, and we're starting to wonder what the deal is. It's now full dark. We've got the campfire going strong, and Buddy fires up his quad. We're a little bit higher up than the road, maybe 5 feet, and he stops at the entrance to our site. My boyfriend walks over, and Buddy is all, "Oh, there's people here?" and starts asking questions about how many people and how long we've been there for. My boyfriend lies and says that there's a few of us, and more coming. Smart man. Buddy goes off on his quad, past my car which is parked about 10 feet down the road on the way out. About 10 minutes later, he comes back, past the car, past our site, and has some more strong words with the river. Another half hour of yelling, and he gets back on his quad, goes to drive back out, and stops right near my car. We're definitely weirded out at this point and didn't want my car trashed. My boyfriend takes the hatchet and goes to, quote, get something out of the car. Buddy is once again surprised by our presence. He leaves again, but not 20 minutes go by and he comes back. It's about 11 p.m. now. We were drinking but are now stone cold sober. Buddy stops his quad just below the campsite again. We pretend to ignore his presence and go on with our conversation. I've got 911 dialed on my phone, a hatchet beside my chair, and my hunting knife in my lap, just about to press send when he goes to leave again. I call anyway and let the police know what's been going on, and if they find 2 murdered bodies, it's us. Buddy came back 2 more times, finally left for good around 2 a.m. I don't think we got any sleep that night. I've never been so unnerved in my life, and I do a decent amount of solo camping. Never heard anything back from the police either. Still freaks me out a bit to this day. Once I was with a girl on Big Frog Mountain at dusk, miles away from anyone. We decided to walk up a trail, when right behind the car I stepped in a mud puddle with odd-looking light brownish water. I pointed out the unusual color to her, and then we started walking. Not far up the trail, she started getting scared and we went back to the car. In the car we started making out while lying in the front seat, and she had her hand draped out the window. I felt an odd sensation in my back. It's happened to me before, like when people are behind me, and I told her to pull her hand in, which she did. A few minutes later, I felt the sensation in my back again, but it felt more urgent. I rolled her window up, but being a horny-ass teenager, continued with the makeout session. A few minutes later, that sensation felt like someone had stuck a live wire to my back. I sat up, started the car, and headed back down the mountain. She was obviously confused and asked me what was wrong. I replied that I didn't know, but something was wrong somewhere. We went back to my parents' house and was assured by them the family was okay. Having calmed down some, we ate a little dinner and then started to leave. After I opened the car door for her, I walked around to the back of the car. While walking, I glanced at the back of the car and saw handprints the same color of the mysterious mud puddle on the car. The last one was over the back window, and it was obvious someone was watching us while inching their way to the front driver's side window. When I saw the handprints, it was like being hit with a lightning bolt, and I knew what had happened. Cold chills ran all over me. I got her out of the car, and as soon as she saw the prints, she knew too. This story is the absolute truth, so help me, and I will never forget it. This story may be short, or may be drawn out. I'm recounting these events as I type, as it was honestly one of the most horrifying things I've ever experienced, and it brings me genuine stress to think about. This happened maybe 2 to 3 years ago. I live in Southwest Virginia, and have for my entire life. The woods and mountains surround every direction you look, and nighttime is a darkness that you can never dream of unless experienced. I was with a friend, I'll call him Mark. Mark was at my house one evening, doing the usual things, watching UFC, playing Xbox, etc. It was extremely late when we finally got bored and decided to go for a walk on a nearby trail to smoke a joint. This is not a particularly long trail, but it is very dense in the woods that surround it, and it's easy to get freaked out when thinking of your surroundings. We finally get to about halfway into the trail, about 30 minutes in, where we stop, pack our joint, and stand on the trail to chill and talk. The forest is very alive tonight. There are always noises in the woods, but the amount of animal activity for the time was unsettling. At this point, it was probably past 1 a.m. This was strange and kind of eerie, but not alerting, as any sort of predatory animal in the area may cause a disturbance. We finish smoking and continuing our walk, when almost immediately the forest falls dead quiet. And as soon as the forest goes quiet, there's a voice. It almost sounds like a mocking humanoid voice, shaky and uncertain, almost like an old children's toy. Like the ones with the crackly speakers and robotic voice, if you know what I mean. This immediately sets us off. We bolt directly down the opposite length of the trail, but the sound does not gain distance. It doesn't get any closer per se, but no matter how far we ran down that trail, this eerie voice remains the same volume, going over and over with no quieting or stopping. At this point, I'm convinced that we're in genuine danger, something I have felt very few times. Finally, after sprinting for who knows how long, we exit the trail, grasping for breath and almost at the verge of tears of how frightening this was. We begin to exit the trail, and about 5 minutes from the exit, there's a bone-shaking, heart-stopping, murderous scream from directly behind us. I know what a mountain lion sounds like. This was not an animal. This was not someone playing or watching a movie either. This scream sent birds flying from their nests and made my heart drop into my stomach. It was the most genuinely depraved and violent scream that I have ever heard. This is a true story that I have only ever told 3 people, all of whom seem to brush it off as false. I've never been a person to push for the existence of the paranormal or spiritual, but I genuinely believe that I encountered something inhuman in those woods. Last year I was doing a kind of last hurrah camping trip in the fall before it'd get too cold and snowy for my current gear setup. I was going solo into a valley, and I didn't really expect anyone else to be camping at my side because of how late it was going to be in the season. I had also planned to bushwhack and scramble up to a couple of alpine lakes I could see on the map, about 3 kilometers away from my campsite. Well, I got a little ambitious on my way to camp and did some side trips, so I rolled into camp pretty late. I was alone as expected. I knew I didn't have a lot of sunshine left, and this valley had occasional grizzly warnings, so I set up camp and set off pretty briskly into the bush. There was a path for a while, but soon I was just walking through the woods with no trail towards the climb up to the lakes. While I was walking, I was very frequently calling out hey-ho just in case of bears. About 1 kilometer away from the lakes, I suddenly hear a hey-ho back. It was a woman's voice, and it was loud, and it sounded like she was right behind me. I turned, and there was no one there. I waited a bit, expecting to see someone come out of the bush, and there was nothing. I went up the climb and looked down into the forest, and I couldn't see anyone. I didn't spend too much time at the lakes because I was a little weirded out and it was getting much darker. I practically ran back to my campsite just before it was fully dark, and thankfully a few other campers showed up. But they said that they weren't the person in the woods and they hadn't seen anyone when walking in, and part of the hike is a ridge, so they definitely would have. To get to that part of the valley, you'd have to walk through the campsite or come over some very significant mountain passes. It was just so strange. Someone had found me out in the middle of the woods, and if they hiked out that night, they did so in complete darkness. I was on one of my first solo backpacking trips in the Spring Mountains in southern Nevada. My plan was to do Mount Charleston in 2 days, spending the night, then bagging the peak and heading down the next day. If you haven't been there, the trail is gorgeous. It winds up around the rim of a big valley before veering up to the summit ridge, and offers just some awesome views. About 2 miles into the ascent, a faster hiker overtakes me. Rather than just nod and continue on, he stops and matches pace with me, and we strike up a conversation. Nothing particularly weird about what we talked about, but something was just a little off about him. He was too intense, too friendly. His charisma felt almost manic. You ever seen the interview with Tom Cruise where he talks about Scientology? This dude was like that, same kind of artificial friendliness. He was too type A, almost like he was imitating a genuine reaction. I recall him telling me that he really liked challenging himself, but felt sick because nothing really ever felt hard or exciting anymore. Nothing really, quote, made him hard like it used to paraphrase. Well, the jabroni's vibe was really freaking me out, so I made an excuse to stop for lunch. The dude kept hiking, and I thought that was the end of it. I had an awesome rest of the day, and as I hiked, he slipped further from my mind. I found a gorgeous campsite jutting off from the valley wall and settled in for the night. As night fell, as happens to us when we're alone in the backcountry, it started getting squirrely as hell. My mind kept jumping back to how weird that guy was, and how he acted like something thought a regular human should act. To make it worse, I was cowboy camping. Not even the dubious protection of nylon between me and the potential of seeing Smiley Guy. So, in order to ease my anxious mind, before going to bed, I set my fixed blade knife in easy reach right next to my head. I eventually got to sleep after listening to a few episodes of my podcast. I slept unusually soundly, not waking once the whole night. When I awoke in the morning, I felt unusually content and well-rested. That is, until I went to grab my stove out of my pack. The location of my pack wasn't the issue. It was where I had left it, leaning against a pine about 5 feet from my pad. No, what really freaked me out was that every single pocket was open. All the zippers unzipped. All the snap closures unwrapped. The sleeping bag compartment was open. The interior mesh compartments were open. The buckle closures on my stuff sacks were clicked open inside the bag. Nothing was taken. The bag hadn't been moved. But literally every pocket was open. I wigged, dude. I had made sure that they were all closed the night before. I'm fastidious with my gear. Someone had opened them. In panic, I looked down to where my knife lay on the ground, next to my pad. Sure enough, the snap closure that held it to its sheath had been snapped open. Let me tell you, brother, I set the fucking land speed record hauling ass off that mountain.